So I saw a video recently with Nigel Farage, and he was talking about capitalism isn't the problem, corporatism is. Okay, so his definition of corporatism was big businesses have the upper hand over governments, by which I think really he's talking about, to the audience that accepts everything that he says to a degree and is, supportive of him, that they'll think he's talking about the World Economic Forum and other groups that are considered malefic. So while what he's saying is kind of partly true, it's inaccurate in the sense that corporatism is not what he defines it to be. So corporatism, I thought for a long time, meant exactly what Farage says. So as with any claim by any politician, I go and look at what the words mean, and you get a very different story. So corporatism means the body. The principle behind corporatism is that there isn't one single part of your body, no organ, no single aspect of the body is more important than any other part of the body. So we can't say the heart is the most important part of the body, because it needs the brain to tell it to pump. It doesn't just work automatically. There's involuntary parts of the brain that make things happen. We can't say the brain is more important than anything else, because the brain needs, it needs blood, it needs nutrition, it needs the other parts of the body to function. It needs the kidneys to get rid of all the poisons out of the blood. It needs your stomach so that you can send energy into your body, and that goes up. You get the picture, yeah? So the idea is that you haven't got a class struggle, okay? So what he's describing is a world of class struggle, which is actually happening, okay? But capitalism is to blame for this, in particular neoliberalism. As one class accumulates assets over time, it owns large portions of the economy, large portions of society. We get inflation due to assets being hoarded by people with immense wealth, and this impacts people like me who go to work every day, and we get less bang for a buck. We work so hard, but we don't really get much in return. So that creates a class conflict, a class struggle. So you've got either one class, the upper class, dominating society, or you go the communist socialist route. You have a revolution, and you have the working class take over in power. But as we know, centralised power in a lot of instances tends to produce the same result. So you just end up with the same shit that you just got rid of, in essence. So corporatism is about class cooperation. It's not about class struggle or domination. A better term would probably be reciprocity. So there are many different flavours of corporatism, as there are with capitalism. Capitalism presents, in particular neoliberalism, liberalism in particular, it presents inequality as a virtue. Greed is good. And if you're not doing well, it's because you fucked everything up. Work harder, do better, be like us, be rich, we're so great. And, it's written into it that in order to have growth, everyone has to be in their own self-interest. Well, corporatism is not about self-interest, it's about interest groups. So you have three different sections of society. The three main bodies in society would be the state, the unions, and the businesses. So the idea is that anything that happens in society is done contractually. It's not done by the free market. Your wages aren't determined by the market. You know, decisions that politicians would be made with all three parties involved, fully represented. So it's got more of a direct democracy. So the best model that I've seen is the Nordic model, which is in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and so on. That is a working neo-corporatist model. And to give you an example of why I think that it's actually a good idea, corporatism, is that my job over there as a labourer, the entry level for construction is £19 an hour. They're around about £20 an hour. Cleaners, they're on like £17 an hour. You know, if you're working in a bar, I think the lowest wage I saw was about £15 an hour. You know, so like we're way off in regards to that here in the UK, and they're done through collective bargaining agreements, which is corporatism. A lot of people will say that that's socialism, but it isn't. We've never had socialism here in the UK. We had corporatism just before Thatcher got in. Ted Heath was a corporatist as well. Thatcher just said, let the market take care of it. And we sold everything off, short selling. And while it looked good on paper, in the long run, we had nothing left to produce. Wages were shit. Inflation was high. We lost all of our economic output because of neoliberalism, which is the problem, which is I would say one of the most rogue forms of capitalism that there is. Now, corporatism doesn't solve all problems. No system does. But one thing I do know is that liberal democracy, liberal capitalism, capitalism in general, and neoliberalism especially, is not at all helping. So a lot of these Nordic countries still have lots of nationalised infrastructure, but they allow the free market too. Corporatism would be a means to break away from financial dominance, where the financial sector seems to run roughshod over the whole of society. Everything would have to be negotiated. You know, I mean, you could argue that Donald Trump is a kind of a corporatist in the way that he imposes tariffs and he forces negotiation. You know, you could say that. Giorgia Meloni in Italy, you could argue, is a corporatist. There are collective bargaining agreements. There's no national minimum wage. The wages are terrible in Italy, but that's because the type of corporatism that's there is one that generally, I think, favours more to the right, towards businesses, rather than has a balance between all three. So the idea is that you've got a tripartite system that's able to negotiate fairly, and in the Nordic model that is there. Okay, so I don't want a Donald Trump corporatism. I don't want a Giorgia Meloni corporatism. I definitely wouldn't want a Nigel Farage corporatism, because it would probably sing along the same hymn sheet as those two. Corporatism, though, neo-corporatism, in the form that it is in the Nordic system, is a good idea. It's a functioning idea. Right now, it's working. And it's something that I think could be implemented in the UK, because let's face it, the revolution ain't happening. And, you know, I think when Farage is either being incredibly disingenuous or he's just ignorant. It's one of those two, because corporatism isn't what he defines it as. But when he says that it's not capitalism that's a problem, it's corporatism, that would immediately put you off the idea of corporatism. Most people won't even click on this video to find out what it means. Most people, you know, and when I try bringing it up in the video, in the comments, I'm just talking to bots. These aren't even people that I'm talking to. You can't even have a debate, you know. So I just think that's worth bringing up. Okay, yes, the problems are you have got corporate dominance, but what he's describing is a corptocracy, not corporatism. Very different kettle of fish. And in fact, it's corporatism that I think would be able to slot into this country quite easily. We have the structure in place. We just need a system that doesn't put all of the reliance on the voter making the right choice with a party. We need a system that doesn't just listen to the market. We need something that has a balance between three functioning main economic groups in society, and that all interest groups, everyone gets a voice, and balance and compromise and transparency becomes an integral part of your society. You know, for instance, let's say if a business wants to make a wage cut, it would have to present that to the government, it would have to present it to the union. Transparency would be, you know, it would be integrated into the system. We'd be able to get rid of things like umbrella companies and payrolls. We'd be able to get rid of things like shell companies and micro entities that have special exemptions on auditing, where it's actually a criminal offence to ask them for more detail on their books for the year. That would have to go, and the business would have to clearly show why they're giving a pay cut. And if it is that they really haven't got the turnover, then fair enough. But the unions could ask for other benefits in return, and the government would be there to arbitrate between both of them. This is a system that is functioning right now in Norway, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and their wages are great. You know, the system looks really good. So it's not capitalism. It is capitalism that's the problem, but not corporatism. Corporatism might actually be a solution.